He stated that he was cleaning his rifle and it accidentally just went off.
I'd do that. Bit of a grass in my eyes, to be honest. He's brought shame upon me family tree.
So they took 2 distress calls from the Titanic when it was sinking.
Oh my God.
Florence Nightingale. So, should we keep going back?
Don't tell me you have to sit and read newspapers.
You would not believe. Hello and welcome back to Unearth the Past. It's me, Dr. Michala Hulme, as always. This week, I am so excited. I'm joined by one of my favourite comedians.
One of.
You know what? He's going to catch me out this whole podcast. My top 2 famous.
I'll take that. That's good.
My lovely guest, Paul Smith.
Hi.
You are selling out arenas left, right and centre. You are doing fantastically well. You have millions of followers on social media. You even have your own comedy club. Amazing.
Going all right.
It's going all right, isn't it?
Doing okay.
Right.
Doing all right.
So before we delve into your tree then, which I'm really excited about sharing with you, I've thoroughly enjoyed researching. Where did the comedy, is it always been comedy for you or?
No, I'm quite, people get really disappointed. I'm quite quiet in real life and quite shy. It's just something I did in my early 20s. It's like kind of like my version of a bungee jump. Just wanted to do it once, and then I just found that I was a lot more confident on stage. It's something weird in me. Most comedians have this. We're not the most outgoing people. We just tend to be weirdly comfortable making a fool of ourselves. So that's just, yeah. Once I did it once, I was like, I need to keep doing that.
I honestly think out of all the arts, it's the hardest thing to do, to put yourself out there on stage and to make people laugh. You know what I mean? It's
hard. I find it quite natural, to be honest. So yeah, I'd rather do that than be a gymnast or something.
Right, should we delve into your tree?
Yes, please. I'm
I'm
excited about this.
So,
I hope it's a good one and not like everyone's just a builder.
What would be the worst case scenario, like a tree full of builders?
Just, I don't know. Yes, everyone's called Smith and everyone's a builder.
Well, obviously. So,
there we go. Cut.
When I looked into your tree, straight away I thought, just because of your surname, I thought it's probably going to be difficult just because of how many Smiths they are. You've probably got a tree with some of the worst searchable surnames, like Smith, Jones is another one. I could go on, but I thoroughly enjoyed researching it, and I think I've done all right.
Okay. How far back did you get to? Can you say?
God, so on some of the lines back into the 18th century, pretty comfortably.
Oh, nice.
Weirdly, the most difficult line to research was obviously the Smith line.
Yeah.
And that's just because when I struggle with something, I always then go to your DNA.
Yeah.
You have got Smith in your DNA, and you've got the offshoots of the Smith branch in your DNA. But weirdly, not many direct Smith cousin matches. So you are definitely a Smith. We know that because, for example, who the Smiths marry into, you share all their DNA. But for some reason, your branch of the Smiths, not many Smiths have taken a DNA test yet.
Oh, okay.
So, I know. So if you're out there and you're called Smith and you are from Liverpool, please take a DNA test.
And then message me if you're related to me.
Well, having said that, I have had a message, believe it or not, from a distant cousin of yours, which we shall pick up on in a minute.
Really?
Yeah, so when you took your Ancestry DNA test, it primarily tells me 3 things. The first one is it gives you an ethnicity estimate.
Yeah.
So it'll tell me you're 5% Irish, 10% Scottish, and we're going to
97% Irish.
All his branches, Laurie, go back to Ireland. Like every branch goes back to Ireland.
I'll take that.
Then what else it does, it gives me your traits. So it tells me whether you're a morning person or a night person. I know we spoke about this in the lift. Laurie told me he gets hangry. So it tells me that.
I'm losing a dog here. Sorry, I'm being unprofessional. And I brought my dog just in case anyone's wondering. Never work with animals. Cyril.
But we love Cyril. On this podcast, we actually prefer dogs to people.
Yeah,
so it's all
we're going
right.
to do Cyril's next.
Can I just say, joking aside, you can get a DNA test now for your dogs. Ancestry do a dog DNA test. So if you would like to know... Yeah.
I don't think he is a real cockapoo. He's too small.
Oh, don't. Look at that little face. Zoe, I'm trying to be professional. So, So primarily your DNA then tells me three things. It tells me your ethnicity estimate, it tells me your traits, and it also provides me with cousin matches. So that's everybody that you share DNA with.
Oh, so that pops up on theirs and they can see it?
That all pops up on there. So let's start then with the Smith side of your family tree. Now, am I right by thinking that you'd looked into it a bit, or you tried?
I tried a while back. I didn't have much luck. I don't know how far back I got. I took the information that I had, but again, it's just there's such like common names that you like. The way it was working, it was coming up, and I was like, I kind of assume that's the right person, but I mean, it's like James Smith or something. So like, there's like 15 options. You're like, I don't know if I picked the right guy now, so I could be completely going down the wrong path.
So when you were going through your family tree, because I've seen your family tree, and I think it's actually pretty good, and it did form the basis of where I sort of hopefully developed it from.
Yeah. Okay.
So I did manage to go back 5 generations on each side of your tree.
Awesome.
So I've put a copy of the tree in front of you. You can have a look. Feel free, pick it up, go for it.
Yeah, so I remember seeing some of these because there's still Flannerys.
That's
so
right.
I knew that must probably be right. And Canes, I knew there was Canes on my dad's side. So I remember they used to talk about them. Catherine Stenson, I hadn't seen that one.
You've not seen that one?
No, I don't think so. Doesn't ring a bell. Or Bernard H. Kane, I must have done that completely wrong. And Mary Farrell, I must have done them wrong. Did I do them wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd gone completely the wrong way, hadn't I?
Well, it was a good start, I'll say that. So how we unpick that is obviously I look at several different records, marriage records, census records, birth records. And I did have to order a few certificates in just to make sure, because of how popular the Smith line is, that we were on the right tracks. Then when your DNA results came back, it was great because you have cousin matches who are related to the Canes.
Oh, okay.
To the Stentons. So that worked quite well because then it meant that we were definitely on the right tracks with your cousin matches.
Okay.
I didn't find any comedians. I looked.
Well, it's weird because I don't know if it's the same cousin. A guy messaged me earlier this year, like in early January, saying he was my distant cousin on my dad's side from, he lived in Australia and now he lives in America. And he said that on his side, it must be a second or third cousin, there was a comedian called Freddie Phillips.
Okay, halt the podcast. So after we finished recording, I decided that I wanted to look into the claim that comedian Freddie Phillips was a distant relation. Now, even though I'd not found any comedians on his sort of immediate family tree, so I'm talking parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, etc., it didn't mean to say that Freddie Phillips was not a cousin, some sort of distant cousin on one of his branches. So I did a bit of digging. I got some old newspapers, I had a look on the internet to see if I could find anything about this elusive comedian, Freddie Phillips. And indeed, I did. So I managed from searching in the newspapers to find out where he went to school and the area that he lived in. Now, if you're from the Northwest, the area is known as the Wirral. We often call it over the water. Having this information, I then went back to the family tree and had a look at all the great aunties and uncles, great aunties and uncles, and had a look at their children. And indeed, I did find that one of Bernard Kane's daughters married a Phillips, and they had a son called Frederick Phillips in 1949. Now, I have ordered the birth certificate. It's not come back yet at the time of recording this podcast, but I do think it is a match. I had a look into Freddie and had a look into his life and his career. He was born in 1949 in Liverpool. He was a singer and also a comedian. He was the lead singer in a group called Beano, and they toured all the sort of northern working men's clubs in the 70s and the 80s. Beano was made up of Freddie, Ken Smith, Ray Johnson, and another guy called John Birch. In 1986, he appeared as a stand-up comedian on a show called New Faces. You may have heard of New Faces. It's a show that people like Lenny Henry appeared on back in the day. The last snippet of information I could find about Freddie was that he'd moved to Tenerife with his partner Mary, and he was a local tour guide. And apparently his tours were extremely funny. So I've managed to track him up to about 2012. I don't know what happens to him after that date. So Paul Smith is related to a comedian called Freddie Phillips. Back to the podcast. So let's start by going down the Smith side then.
Okay.
So your granddad is Robert Smith. He
Yes.
was born in 1924 in Liverpool. And the first record that I have for him is his marriage certificate. Now, going back, so as you follow the family tree back, I managed to find Robert's parents, which were also Robert Smith and Jane Farrell.
This is a joke because my mum always laughs about this because his brother's called Bernard Robert and he's called Robert Bernard, and I think that goes back. And he tried to so I'm Paul Robert.
Yeah.
He tried to call me Robert Bernard.
Did he?
And my mum would never.
Not having it. She's like, no.
He's like, no, that's the stupidest thing ever. Yeah, well, so my mum saved me from that fate.
Weirdly, they're all called Robert, aren't they? Yeah. So if you go back, it's all called Robert. I managed to find Robert Smith and Jane Farrell, who were your great-grandparents, just before World War II, and they're living on Lace Street.
In Liverpool?
In Liverpool. Nice. Your great-granddad was born in 1889. He was also born in Liverpool. And his father, which is your great-great-granddad, as I mentioned, he's also called Robert. And he's working as a carter. So basically, he's like probably a bit like a DPD driver of the day. So he's moving stuff back and forward. In 1901, the family are actually all living with their in-laws. They're living with the Cranes. I don't know if you can see that on the
Jane Crane.
That's it.
Great name.
Yep, Jane Crane. They're living with the Cranes, and they're living in a court just off Gladstone Street. I actually have your great-great-grandparents' marriage certificate, if you would like to see it.
I'd love to see that, yeah.
Yep. And just to make matters even more complicated, it's in Latin because it's Catholic. But I'm hoping that you should just.
I imagine you speak Latin, so it's sound.
I do.
Is that Still Street?
Yeah.
I want to try and find all these places.
So that
I imagine a lot of them don't exist anymore.
No. So the buildings have gone, but the streets are still there. So I have managed to get pictures where I can of some of them, but the buildings have gone, but the street is still there. So not only is this record in Victorian terrible handwriting, it's also in Latin. It's like the worst test I could have possibly given on you.
So it's Robert et...
Yeah.
Something Smith. What's her name?
Let me have a look. Here we go. Right. So we've got... So they married, I think, in June 1920. Robert Smith. Right. Okay. So this is something that comes up a lot in your family tree, is how you spell Smith.
Okay.
So sometimes it's been smelt. Sometimes it's been spelt as like Smythe, but it's still Smith. It's just how the way they spell it. So they do SMYTH.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So it's just another way to spell it. So so they live on, I think it's Stilt Street. I think it's called Stilt Street. That's basically saying who are his parents. So his parents are Robert and Jane Smith, and again in brackets it's like Smythe. And then you've got Mary Farrell, and her dad is Patrick and Ellen Farrell.
Okay.
And then they've got two witnesses who also they're the Clarks, and that is where Robert Smith is living. He's actually living with them at the time of this record, and the Farrells are living at 35, so they're just 2 doors up. So they potentially could have met because they lived 2 doors up from each other. Ah. Which is quite nice.
I suppose that's how people met before Tinder, isn't it?
I don't think they were swiping.
Just waving.
I did trace the Smiths as far back as the 1830s, right? And the problem I had was when we get that far back, I'm solely relying on parish records. And because of how popular the name was, going back further than that was difficult because, to be honest, I just couldn't 100% say it was them. Yeah, and I was just guessing, and not enough, basically, Smiths had taken a DNA test for me to then sort of track it and go, oh, well, you shared distant DNA with them, so it must be that branch. So it was hard for me to go back further than that with that side of your tree. I will say though, and you're probably going to think I'm dead boring now, they were all carters and porters.
I knew they would be.
And they were working on the docks. So if it's all right with you, I'm going to move on because there's a lot that I want to talk about on the Cain side.
Yeah,
I'm conscious of time.
Yeah,
right?
I thought that'd be an interesting one because it was my dad used to speak about that. I didn't know any of them, but that was like a name that always came up. So I imagine they were the interesting ones.
Where nobody mentioned the Smiths. So I'm going to now then go on sticking with your dad's side.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Cains. Do you remember any of the Cain side of your family?
No, because I mean, I never met my granddad on that side. It says living here. Well, I hope he's not.
No.
Well, I'd be happy if he was. But I was told he was dead. So I knew my nan, so I knew Mary.
Yeah.
Obviously. But yeah, no, I didn't know anyone further back than that.
Okay, well, let's dive into that side then. So I'm going to start with your great-grandfather, who is Bernard Cain. So Bernard Cain was born in 1900, and his wife, your great-grandmother, was called Catherine Stenson. And just before the war, the family are living at 28B Great Richmond Street. Now, Great Richmond Street is obviously Liverpool. It pops up a lot on the sort of different sides of your family tree. All your family trees seem to be sort of around that area, like Burlington Street, Scotty Road, all sort of that area. I don't know Liverpool that well. You two probably know it better than me, but they all seem to be around that neck of the woods.
Yeah.
So just before the war then, he is working in the warehouse of a sugar factory. And I think it's probably Henry Tate and Sons, which became, I think, Tate and Lyle. Yeah. And that was on Love Lane.
Yeah.
The reason I think that is because his mum, who you can see on there, his mum's called Ellen. I don't know if you can see on there.
Ellen Esther Glennon.
Yeah, Ellen Glennon. She is working at the same factory on the 1921 census.
Ah.
So I'm presuming she probably gets Bernard a job working in the factory that she works at. Missing from the register when I have a look at it are their two sons, and that is because the second son, which is Philip, was not born until 1943. However, the oldest son, Bernard, should be on the register. So I've mentioned that they've had all these kids. I've mentioned that they've got Mary, Bernard, Josephine, Kathleen, Bernadette and Philip. On the 1939 register, they're all on there except the two sons, right? And I found a record which explained why Bernard isn't on there. Philip isn't born yet, but I'm going to show you this record if that's all right.
Okay. Oh, God. Fatally injured by bus. Oh, no. Oh, God. Poor Bernard. Boy who ran into the road. Bernard Cain, aged 6, son of a labourer living in Great Richmond Street, was knocked down by a Ribble bus in St Anne Street on Wednesday and fatally injured. Oh. At the inquest held yesterday by the city coroner, the jury returned a verdict of death by misadventure. William Herbert Davis, cleansing inspector, Queen's Drive, Liverpool, said he saw the boy run across the front of the stationary motor car into the path of a bus. The bus driver braked and swerved but unsuccessfully. John Taylor of Langtree Road, Kirkdale, the bus driver, said his speed was about 12 to 15 miles an hour. The stationary motor car obscured his view, and when the witnesses first saw the child, he was only 4 or 5 feet in front of the bus. Oh, no. Poor Bernard. That's sad, isn't it?
Yeah. As I say, I thought when I looked at the record, I thought that he should be on the record, and I thought, why is he not on the record? And then, as I say, I had a look and then found that. And the reason we know it's the right person is because of Great Richmond Street. So it's that.
How do you find that? Don't tell me you have to sit and just read newspapers.
You would not believe.
God,
you would not
that's
believe.
so stressful.
Yeah, I could pretend I'm a magician. No,
if I did that, I'd be fatally injured by a bus as well.
Honestly, you become so patient. Yeah. Right, okay. So let's go back a step further then. So your great-grandparents, they got married in 1923. And I have a picture of them in later life if you would like to see it. So that is Bernard.
Oh, what a handsome chap. Yes.
Could you describe him? What he looks quite dapper.
He does look quite dapper. He looks well dressed. I like his bowler hat. Has he got in his hand a little pocket watch or something? Maybe a coin?
Yeah.
Fiddler. I'm a fiddler.
Yeah.
Always fiddling.
Are you a fiddler?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad.
Always got to. Yeah.
Always fiddling with something.
Yeah.
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 He looks well turned out.
He does, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He looks very dapper.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is Catherine Stenson.
Ooh, she's fancy one. It's a nice fair coat, isn't it?
Yeah.
She's pretty, isn't she? So that's my great nan.
Yes, that's Catherine Stenson, your great grandmother.
Oh.
So she seems to be,
Do you look like, unless that was the only time they ever got dressed up for those pictures.
They were like scruffs for the whole week.
Yeah. She looks a bit like my mum, to be honest. Well, that was just weird because I was on a different side.
Totally different
side. But she's got looks like my mum when she was young. That's weird.
So, should we keep going back?
Mm.
Oh, and here is, by the way, this is the middle name that's horrendous, that I can't pronounce.
The middle name.
So, I don't know if you can just see at the top.
What is that?
You see?
Hegasippes.
Hegasippes.
That's not a name. That's got to be some weird Irish, ancestry name.
To be fair, his uncle has the same middle name. First time
Gotta be a family thing.
First time I've ever come across it. So you've just seen a picture then of your great grandparents. The next record we have is the 1921 census, and this has obviously got Bernard on, and his mum, who I've mentioned worked at the factory, the sugar factory, and her name is Ellen Esther Glennon.
Yeah.
So you can see her on the tree. I have the 1921 census if you would like to see it.
Yeah.
So this is the 1921 census. Handwriting is appalling. Hopefully you'll be able to make out Bernard.
So that's Ellen, Joseph, Bernard, and is it Florence?
Florence Nightingale.
Yeah? The actual Florence Nightingale? Can't be.
No, but they obviously... No, but your face then will be great because it was like... And then I think is Joseph in there as well?
Yeah, there's a Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph.
So that would have been his
brother. Yeah.
Great uncle. Or
that would be correct, yeah.
Yeah, so he's older. Employment, love, and...
So that's one's employed on the railway. I think, is it the London Railway, is it? Or it might be the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway.
Yeah, railway porter, yeah.
Yeah.
Bernard, it says... I don't know what it says.
Seaman.
Don't think so. Does it say able seaman?
Able seaman.
Ah. That's why I like boats so much. Yeah. Don't like fish.
No.
That's a seamen don't like fish. 'Cause if you see a fish, you're dead. You fell off the boat. That's cool.
Should we keep going back?
Yeah. What did it say for Florence there?
Let me have a look.
Sorry, I'm trying to read that.
It's all right, mate. So, Florence Nightingale, niece, she's 21 years old and 5 months. She's a female, she's single, and she's just basically working at home. She's just sort of doing home duties, so helping around the house. I don't know if you could make it out, but as you can see, Bernard is an able seaman, and at the time, he's working for Cunard's.
Ah.
I managed to find some of his records, and he's actually working on Cunard's ship, which is called the Coronia. And it's got quite an in-depth history, this ship, because when the Titanic sunk, that ship was the ship that intercepted the message for ice and told the Titanic, relayed to the Titanic that there was ice.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And also, so it told them that they were basically could potentially hit an iceberg. And then when it sunk and it was going down, they were the ones that took the distress call. So they took 2 distress calls from the Titanic when it was sinking.
Oh, my God.
So, and he worked on that ship.
I'm going to say he's the one who took the call.
I would actually say he took that call. Yeah. He took that call. Now, I know from his war records that he served on that ship during World War One. He was in the Merchant Navy, but that ship they converted it into an armed Merchant Navy ship.
Yeah.
I have an image of his Merchant Navy record if you would like to see it.
I would love to see that, yeah. Ah, what a guy.
So there's a picture of him. He looks quite young, doesn't he, on that picture?
He does look quite young. He looks happy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's got very sort of slicked hair.
Yeah. Doesn't give us height.
No. I think it's probably fair to say that Bernard didn't have the best starts in life. And that was because when I was doing my research, I found that from the age of 6 months old, he was in the workhouse.
Oh, no. Oh.
Yes. So his mum, who you've looked at, Ellen, she was obviously married to her husband. And I don't know if you noticed, but when you looked at the 1921 census...
He wasn't there.
He's not there. So what happens is she is married. The dad is called Philip Joseph Kane, and he's a tailor. And they're doing pretty well with the tailoring business. So they're advertising in the local kind of trade directories. He is what we call a journeyman tailor. So that means that he's spent 7 years as an apprentice, and he's basically one under a master tailor, and he's doing well. But when Bernard is only 6 months old, he becomes ill, and the whole family go into the workhouse. Now, I think he's in it because it's also a hospital, right? And if you don't have a lot of money, where do you get healthcare? Where do you get looked after? It's the workhouse infirmary. So I think he's in it because of that. He dies when Bernard is only 3 of a brain tumour.
Oh, God.
All the family, her and her sons, are all in the workhouse. But they don't stay in the workhouse.
Good.
So on the next record I have for them, which is the 1911 census, they are split up. So she's got the oldest son, who's called Philip. She's got him, and she is living at 155 Burlington Street. And next door in 157 is her parents, and they've got the other 2 lads.
Oh, okay.
So basically the other 2 lads have gone to live with her parents. Now, in 1914, as we've mentioned, because you just had a look at Bernard's Merchant Navy record, Britain joins World War One. Now, because of his age, we know that Bernard must have joined towards the end of the war. Joseph, the other brother, I think it's him. I think he tried to fudge his age because he would have been well too young, but got caught and got kicked out. But Philip signs up, the other brother. Philip signs up on the 1st of September 1914, and he signs up to the 12th Battalion of the King's Liverpool Regiment. I don't think he took particularly well to military life. So the next record that I found for him was on the 31st of August 1916, when he shot himself in the foot.
Oh, good, thank God. Thank God it was the foot. So what, he just shot himself to get out of it?
Now, he stated...
I'd do that.
This was not supposed to be the funny bit. So he stated that he was cleaning his rifle, and it accidentally just went off. However, there were no witnesses, and it was deemed that he actually did it willfully, on purpose.
Oh, no.
And he was tried by court-martial.
Oh, God.
Now, I couldn't find the results, obviously, because I don't know if those things are in the public domain, but he remained with the battalion. So the wound obviously wasn't that bad, and he remained with the battalion. So I'm presuming that the punishment, they didn't obviously kick him out.
Stay where you are.
Yeah. So it was basically, you stay, which he did. Now, in the September of 1917, Philip and his battalion are fighting in France. And I know that because he actually appears in a record from the battalion. And this is a record that his commander when his commander's making notes, he mentions him in the notes, which is quite unusual. His commander at the time states that on the 19th and the 20th of September, the battalion is subject to heavy fire in France. And on the 26th of September, there is more heavy shelling and a heavy bombardment. And the commander reports that Private Kane appears much shaken, which is unusual to report that. So he obviously was struggling with it. But, you know, you have no choice. You've got to stay, haven't you? Now, on the 20th of November, the battalion would take part in the Battle of Cambrai, which was a British offensive that happened in France. And this was, I suppose, a new way of looking at warfare, right? So they were not just using men going forward, soldiers on the front line pushing forward with their guns. Now they were also using aeroplanes and, for the first time, tanks. And his battalion are involved in this push, this Battle of Cambrai. Now, from the war diaries, I know, because I've read them, I know that the tanks managed to push through the German lines and they captured over 7,000 German soldiers. So initially, it was a success. However, on the 30th of November, the German army started a counterattack, and it's one of the biggest counterattacks I think the German army actually did at that time. And nobody was expecting it, but the Germans were basically waiting. They knew what was going to happen, and they were waiting to counterattack. So even though his battalion had made some gains, inevitably they were now going to face the Germans who would push them back. The war diary states that just after 7:30 a.m, the enemy attacked in masses under a cover of heavy artillery barrage and heavy machine gun fire from a large number of low-flying aeroplanes. This is the first time that I've read aeroplanes being used in a war diary. I'm not saying they weren't, it's just the first time that I'd come across it. The aeroplanes were not only firing on them, but they were also dropping bombs. The enemy had penetrated the line on the right, meaning that the battalion had to retire in order to avoid being cut off. Due to the gunfire from the aeroplanes, the SOS signal was not met. So they didn't hear the SOS signal because of all the gunfire from the German planes. 9 officers were reported missing, 2 officers were wounded, 55 regular soldiers were wounded, with 229 soldiers killed or missing. Philip was one of those missing. He was later declared as killed in action. His body was never recovered, but his name does appear on the Cambrai Memorial.
Oh, does it?
Do you want to see his name on the memorial?
Oh, yeah. Where's that?
So that's in Cambrai.
Okay. Yeah, I need to go and see that.
You were like, I thought it was going to be all happy.
I know. Everyone's dead.
Oh, God,
killed by a plane or by a bus. I mean, I'm saying that like I didn't know everyone was dead.
Like they were just going to walk in. So you may be wondering then, what happens to the rest of the Kane, the Kane family? It must have been particularly tough for Ellen because she's lost her husband really young. He's obviously, died of a brain tumour. And then she loses her eldest son in World War One. Well, Ellen remained living next door to her parents on Burlington Street right up until her death in 1932. Her parents were John Glennon and Mary Mulholland, and they were from Louth in Ireland. I hope I've pronounced that right. They had 16 children.
Bloody hell.
But sadly, only 8 would make it to adulthood. John spent his whole life working on the railways. And going back to your great-great-grandmother, Ellen, who we've just spoke about, I have a copy of her grave, if you'd like to see it.
Oh, yeah. Where's that?
Oh, your whole family, by the way, is buried in, is it the Ford Cemetery, the Catholic cemetery in Liverpool?
Oh, is it?
All of them, yeah. All of them. They're all in there. So I'm just...
So I'm going tomorrow.
Literally.
We love a graveyard, don't we?
Do you? Oh, God, I thought that was just me. Okay.
Said, "O Mother of Sorrows, intercede for the soul of Ellen Esther Kane, who died April 23rd, 1932, aged 60 years, RIP. Erected by her son Joseph Kane, also Bernard Kane, grandchild of above, who died January 7th, 1937, aged 7 years."
So he was the little one that ran out in front of the car. He's also in that plot as well.
Ah.
Now, as we've already mentioned, Ellen had, a pretty tough beginning, losing a husband. The whole family's in the workhouse, they're really struggling. But I did manage to find her probate. So what she left when she died. And I thought I'd just let you have a look at that. I don't know if you could
Ellen Esther of 157 Burlington Street, Liverpool, widow, died 26th April 1932 at 28 Catherine Terrace, Broad Green Road, Old Swan, Liverpool. Probate, Liverpool, 13th September, to Edwards Marshall, steelworker, and James Alfred Martin, solicitors, managing clerk. Effects, £1,435, 17 shillings, 11. What's?
I've put that in brackets. What it is today.
125 grand, flying. She's all right then, isn't she?
She ended up all right, didn't she?
Yeah.
After being in the workhouse, struggling.
Yeah.
She did okay. So, going back down the Kane Road. So, I don't know if you can see on there, but I went back to your third time great-grandfather, Philip Kane.
Yeah.
He was born in 1841. And he actually he's the one that came over from Ireland, settled in Glasgow.
Oh, really?
Didn't come straight here. And I think in Glasgow is where he served his apprenticeship. He settled in Glasgow, and while he's in Glasgow, he meets your great-great-great-grandmother, Sarah Gillen. She should be on there as well.
No, this one's not back that far, I don't think.
Oh, no, it doesn't, sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
Right, when you actually go on it, if you press the little arrows, it'll take you back. Sarah Gillen, she was Irish, but at the time her family were living in Scotland. They meet, they fall in love, and they both decide to move to Liverpool. Philip, as was his son, was a journeyman tailor, and the family live on Richmond Row. And they live at number 1 Richmond Row. And he's appearing in trade directories all the time, sort of promoting himself and his business. I looked at Richmond Row, and I think it's likely that it was a shop.
Yeah.
Because it looks like shop, so I'm presuming that it was
above the shop.
Potentially a tailor's shop, and they're living above the shop. I'm going to move now, because I'm conscious of time. I told you it goes really fast. Onto your mum's side of the tree.
Okay.
So shall we go down? Is it Thomas Heighton, your great-grandfather?
Thomas Heighton,
yeah. So Thomas Heighton, your great-grandfather on your mum's side, he was born in 1902, and he was one of 7 children born to James Heighton and Ellen Kelly. In 1911, James and Ellen are living on Bispam Street, and James is a blacksmith, and he continues to be a blacksmith throughout the whole way through. I don't think it's horses. I think it's more like metalwork than horses, but that's what he's doing.
Cool.
Now, the oldest of the Heighton children is Mary Ann. And Mary Ann, she was born in 1899. And in 1924, she married a guy called Thomas Rimmer. And just before the war, in 1939, she is living with her husband and children on Blackstock Street.
That's where the comedy club's there?
No.
That's where we've just opened the comedy club? That's mad.
No way.
It's called Blackstock Market.
Oh my God. So I saw that. So obviously when I always do a bit of research, right? So when I was looking and I'd seen you'd open this new comedy club, you won't believe I got a PhD, didn't actually put the two together, that is the place.
So that's my great grandmother.
So that
great auntie.
Yeah. So this would be your great grandfather was born in 1902. This is his sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. They live on Blackstock Street. You two know that very well. Now, on the night of the 20th of December, 1940, the Blitz, German bombs start dropping all over Liverpool. And what Mary does, she grabs her belongings and her family and she goes into the Blackstock Gardens shelter to take cover because the bombs are dropping. And I have another record for you now.
Yeah.
So this is a list of all the civilian deaths that happened during the war.
Oh, God. So she died there?
So they dropped a bomb on the shelter and they killed over 200 people.
Oh, my God. In 1940, Blackstock Gardens. That's mad. That's so weird.
Now, there is a memorial to... So at the time, there was a blackout on the reporting, right? So you couldn't report it. So I couldn't find any newspaper articles about her death. And that's because at the time, the newspapers, obviously, they weren't reporting anything that was happening from the Germans to us because we were all fine. And it was only later on that I came across what had happened in a later edition of the Echo. And there was never a memorial, and there's now a memorial to the victims. Over 200 people died that day when the bomb came through the shelter. And think about it, that's the place you go because it's safe, innit?
Yeah.
And no, they bombed the air raid shelter. Yeah.
That's so mad.
There's so much to your family tree, Paul. We could honestly go on for 50 hours, but I'm going to send you the link so you can have a look at that if that's all right. Have a look at it. If you've got any questions or there's any parts you want to ask me about it, just drop me a WhatsApp, and I'll reply, basically.
I'm going to do your editing with this for the next month or so.
There was an interesting article, actually, that I'm going to show you. On the Stenson side, John Stenson, who I think should be on your tree, might just be off it.
Yeah, it's just
He actually appears in the newspaper in 1880. For good things, though, actually.
Oh, good, okay.
For good things. I will...
Not dead. Well, he's dead.
He's definitely dead. So, for basically sticking up for the police.
Oh, God. That's not good for me, that. Oh, God. This is probably the worst thing that's happened. We have to cut this out. My name's Mud now. Got a reputation. What are you doing, John? Stoning and kicking the police. Anne Shields and Martin Walsh were brought before Mr. Raffles on Monday, charged with assaulting Police Constable 973 and John Stenson in Addison Street. The officer stated that Mr. A.B. Forward and Mr. Savage were taking the depositions of a man, Needham. The prisoner came rushing up to the door and wanted to be admitted into the house. The constable refused to admit them and they kicked them about the legs. Stenson assisted the constable to take the prisoners into custody. He was also assaulted. It was stated there were about 600 people assembled at Addison Street and Scotland Road. A fine of 20 shillings and cost was imposed in default 14 days. Bridget Salmon, James Flanagan and Anne Kilcoyne were charged with throwing stones at Police Constable 973 and John Stenson in Scotland Place on Monday. As Stenson and the officer were moving to the Bradwell, Shields and Walsh, the above three prisoners threw a number of stones and brick bats at them. Bloody hell. They were both struck by the missiles but not seriously injured. Other constables arrived on the spot and took the prisoners into custody. Mr. Raffles fined each of them 20 shillings and costs in default 14 days imprisonment. Oh, God. So someone was getting... fair play if someone was getting stoned and he intervened.
He obviously fancied himself a bit, though. You know,
bit of a glass in my eyes, to be honest. He's brought shame upon my family tree. Cyril's fuming.
Oh, Cyril's
disown me now. Disown me. The dogs disown me and everything.
We've obviously not got time to do this properly, but just quickly, I will just give you your traits.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It says you are most likely to have a pet.
Don't believe it.
It says you are likely to get hangry.
That is probably true, yeah.
Yeah. It says you are unlikely to play an instrument. Now, I thought you'd have played a guitar. Or
no, I don't.
No. It says you're a night person, not a morning person. It says you are a risk taker.
Yeah.
I don't know about this one. It says you are not a nap taker.
That is absolutely incorrect. I'm a phenomenal nap taker.
Is he?
I'll nap right now.
It says you are, it's a bit 50-50, likely to have unattached earlobes. So, I think you have.
So, yeah.
And then it says your index finger is longer than your ring finger. Now, I think your index finger's this one. Yeah, and it is. Yeah. Yeah. Paul, thank you so much for coming on my podcast. I hope you've enjoyed that little
I really have. That was amazing.
Thank
you so much. I can't wait to go and have a proper dig into it.
Yeah, go and have a look into it. And as I say, if you've got any questions, by all means, just drop me.
Thank you so much.
And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that is it for this week's podcast. A huge thank you to my amazing guest, Paul Smith. If you haven't done already, check out his website. He's on tour at the minute. I don't know if there are any tickets left, but I'll put a link in the description below. A huge thank you to Samantha Hutchinson for supporting this podcast and The Power of One. Thank you. I couldn't make these podcasts without you. Research assistants on this episode are Lucy Stott and Javaria Salim. Editing is by Progress Media. And last, but by no means least, thank you to you, to every single one of you that takes the time out your day to listen to this podcast. I really, really appreciate it. And don't forget, if you want to get in touch with me, if you want to send me a message, you can do so via my website, which is www.michalahume.com, or you can get me on social media. I shall stick the links in the description below. So I will catch you next week with another amazing guest and another very interesting family tree. You will not want to miss it. See you next week.